Good morning, everyone. It's been a while since I've recorded any books, but I wanted to read this special one. It's written by a lady that lives here in my hometown and also illustrated by a lady that lived here. Both of them are teachers. Amy Poindexter is the author, and Joanna Willoughby is the illustrator. Blue to the Rescue. It's a Touch of Kindness series. The skies were blue and the sun was shimmering bright as Betty Lou, the kind-hearted rabbit, and her friends approached the visitor center of Village Creek State Park. Suddenly, Will, the friendly raccoon, noticed a pedestal beside the park bench with an enormous map on it. "Look," exclaimed Will, "there are so many fun things for us to do here today." "Yeah, we can hike a trail," shouted Gilbert, the rambunctious little squirrel, with excitement. "Sounds like a good plan to me," said Betty Lou. "Which trail should we hike?" she asked. "I think we should hike the Austell Trail," replied Will, pointing to the map. "You can see that it will take us up a steep hill to a lake." "We'll get great exercise too," he continued. "Well, I would rather hike the Big Bend Nature Trail because the Austell Trail will take forever to finish," insisted Gilbert. "Let's take a moment to think about our situation," said Betty Lou. "Our day is just beginning, and the weather seems so pleasant. Don't you think today would be a good day to hike the longer trail?" suggested Betty Lou. "And Gilbert, we can go fishing when we finish hiking the trail," said Will. "All right," agreed Gilbert with a sigh. Warning, trail splits ahead. Gilbert, Will, and Betty Lou proceeded toward the trail they had all agreed upon. When they arrived at the Austell Trail, Betty Lou noticed a sign that read, "Warning, trail splits ahead." Betty Lou immediately grabbed hold of Gilbert and Will's hand. She told them, "It's very important that we stay together on the trail. No walking ahead or lagging behind." Gilbert and Will merely agreed and started on the trail beside Betty Lou. As the three began their hike, they realized there was so much more to nature. They were familiar with animal tracks and animal homes, ant hills and beehives, and although there were lots of fallen tree branches, the trail was all alit with the lush trees and flowers. The sound of the birds chirping and the leaves rustling could be heard throughout the entire wooded area as they continued on their way. Everything seemed so quiet and peaceful. The beauty of the forest was breathtaking. Then, all of a sudden, a loud, piercing sound sprung out, breaking the peace, and could be heard all over the forest. "Ah!" Lo and behold, it was Gilbert. He saw a snake. The snake had slithered out and hissed at him. It wasn't a very big snake, but big enough to scare Gilbert and made him run ahead of Betty Lou and Will. Betty Lou yelled for him to stop and wait for them, but he just kept running. Will and Betty Lou went as fast as they could, trying to catch up with Gilbert when they suddenly came to the split in the trail. "But which way do we go from here?" asked Will, alarmed and confused. Restless and out of breath, Betty Lou had no idea which way Gilbert had gone. She just did her best to stay calm since she knew that he was nowhere in sight. She too became worried about Gilbert. In the meantime, Gilbert was exhausted and came to a halt. He realized that what he had done and knew that he was all alone. He started to feel bad and immediately began to cry. Back at the trail split, Betty Lou and Will weren't exactly sure what they needed to do. "I think we should split up. I'll go left and follow this trail, and you go right and follow that trail. One of us should find him," urged Will, pointing his finger towards the trail. "That makes sense, Will, but I don't think we should. The path is too dangerous to travel alone," said Betty Lou. "What if you were to injure yourself? Then you would be alone. I think we should wait here together for Gilbert to follow the trail back to us." And that's just what they did. Will and Betty Lou stayed at the trail split, hoping Gilbert would just turn around and come back. All alone in the woods, Gilbert loses his glasses and searches to find them. They somehow fell off when he was crying and so upset. The problem is that he can't see at all without his glasses, so the only way to find them is by touch. As he crawls along the dirt path searching, Gilbert hears some footsteps and a humming sound coming from afar. "Hello, Will, Betty Lou," said Gilbert softly. "Who's out there? Can you help me?" he continued. Just then something big was in his view. It was something bright and something blue. "If only I had my glasses and I could see clearly," thought Gilbert as he sat on the ground with a blank stare. "Hi, my name is Poindexter. I'll be glad to help you if I can," he said in a pleasant voice. Hi, Poindexter. Is that correct? Isn't it?" babbled Gilbert. He was a little nervous. "Absolutely perfect," agreed Poindexter gleefully. "My name is Gilbert, and I'm lost, completely lost. You don't see my glasses anywhere, do you?" he asked. Poindexter glanced all around. He was eager to help his new friend. Gilbert's glasses had slid across the dirt path into a pile of leaves. After a few minutes of searching, "I think I found them," he explained. "Are they red?" asked Poindexter. "Yes," replied Gilbert with relief as Poindexter placed them in his hand. "Thank you for helping me," he continued. As Gilbert began to put on his glasses, he noticed that the creature was no longer blurry. Instead, he was sort of fuzzy. Gilbert couldn't believe what he was seeing and thought for a split second that this was all a dream. He suddenly came to the realization that Poindexter was a cuddly blue teddy bear that had come to his rescue. Poindexter grabbed Gilbert's hand and helped him back up on his feet. "Which direction are you going, and do you have plans for today?" asked Poindexter. "Well, those are two great questions that I wish I could answer," sighed Gilbert as he hung his head down and looked toward the ground. "I don't understand what you mean," replied Poindexter. "Would you like to tell me what I can do to help?" "It's a long story," muddled Gilbert as he shook his head and let out a deep sigh. Gilbert understood the problem he had caused and knew the guilt that would come with it. "If only I hadn't run away from the others," Gilbert whispered. "If I had done the right thing and stayed, this would have never happened. I wouldn't be lost, but I got scared." Gilbert just wanted to be with his friends. He had to find Betty Lou and Will. So he told Poindexter everything. As Poindexter listened, he thought of a way to make him feel better. He told Gilbert that no one is perfect and that we all make mistakes. "The important thing is learning from your mistakes," said Poindexter, "so you're less likely to repeat them," he continued. "There's no need to be ashamed of your actions, nor should you feel guilty." Gilbert agreed that everyone makes mistakes. "Yeah, I just did. Not just him." Just then, Poindexter had an idea. "Why don't we go back to the beginning of this trail and look for your friends?" suggested Poindexter. "I will go with you so you won't get lost again and don't have to go alone." "That's a great idea," agreed Gilbert. "Thank you for your help." So the two friends walked side by side down the trail towards the visitor center. Gilbert seemed happy all over again. Poindexter had heard a lot about Will and Betty Lou during the walk and was anxious to meet them. He hoped they could be friends as well. Gilbert was excited for Poindexter to meet them too, but he also couldn't wait for Will and Betty Lou to meet Poindexter. He wanted them all to be best friends. At the other end of the trail, Will and Betty Lou waited and waited. They were hoping Gilbert would soon show up. Otherwise, they would have to go and look for him. As they were looking down the trail path, they noticed a blue bear walking toward them, along with Gilbert. Betty Lou began hopping up and down and shouting with glee, "Gilbert, you're back!" As soon as Gilbert heard her voice, he grabbed a hold of Poindexter and ran toward them, shouting with excitement, "Betty Lou, Will, I'm back, I'm back, I'm back!" As Gilbert approached Will and Betty Lou, he introduced them to his new pal. "This is Poindexter. He saved me today. He's the reason I'm back," said Gilbert. "You must be Betty Lou and Will," replied Poindexter. "I've heard a lot of good things about you today." "Thank you, Poindexter, for helping Gilbert find his way back," said Betty Lou. "That's not all he did," replied Gilbert gratefully. "He helped me find my glasses and helped me feel a lot better about myself after all that I had done today." "Yeah, thanks, Poindexter, for all your hard work," said Will thankfully. "You're very welcome, guys. It's always my pleasure to help out when there's a need," said Poindexter cheerfully. "I'm really sorry for running off," pleaded Gilbert. "I promised never to do it again. I just got really scared when I saw the snake." "It's okay. We all get scared sometimes. We're just glad you're back safe," exclaimed Betty Lou as she reached out to hug Gilbert. They all join in and give Gilbert a tight squeeze. "Poindexter, would you like to go fishing with us?" asked Will. "Sure, sounds like fun," replied Poindexter. In the end, they decided not to complete the hike. Instead, they went to the visitor center, grabbed fishing poles, and with excitement on their faces, they happily went on their way to catch the biggest fish of the day with a promise to try the hike another time. Thoughts for discussion. Name some reasons why someone might need to be rescued. Why did Gilbert not want to hike the Austell Trail? It was too long. What caused Betty Lou to panic when they first arrived at the trail? As a result of Betty Lou seeing the sign, what instructions did she give to Gilbert and Will? Well, she was afraid because of the split in the trail. And then she told them that they should all stick together. Why did Gilbert run away? The snake scared him. Has there ever been a time when you were lost? If so, how did you feel? Scared. What did Betty Lou and Will decide to do after Gilbert ran away? Well, they talked about splitting up, but they decided to stay right there. What did Gilbert lose in the story? His glasses. Have you ever lost something that was important to you? Oh, yeah. If so, what was it and how did you feel when you lost it? I've lost my phone 100 times and found it 100 times, but it's not fun. If Gilbert had to run away, do you think they still should have met Poindexter or still would have met Poindexter? Explain. Well, if Gilbert hadn't run away, they would have all been together and they would have gone down either one trail or the other. So it depends on which trail Poindexter was on. In your own words, describe Poindexter and how he helped Gilbert. Well, he showed up at the best time when Gilbert needed him, and he helped him find his glasses, and they were best friends after that. In the story, the author refers to Betty Lou as kind-hearted rabbit. Do you agree or disagree with this author? Explain your thinking. Well, Betty Lou was very kind. She did not try to get on to Gilbert for running off. And she was nice to Will and didn't say that it was bad of him to think about separating. She just told him that it would be better for them if they stayed together. The vocabulary review. Shimmering, pedestal, rambunctious, steep, lagging, lush, alight, halt, and puzzled. Those are all good vocabulary words for this book. And then it goes on to give information for teachers and parents. This is just a wonderful book, teaching book. And there's a picture of Amy, the author, and Joanna Willoughby, the illustrator. They have Amy still works in Wynn, and Joanna moved, but she taught in Wynn too. They both went to school at Arkansas State University. And here's a blue bear with the name Poindexter. The end. That was a good book. And Amy signed this at the library for my grandson, Connor. Thank you, Amy and Joanna. I love you, Connor.